How frustrated are you that this whole campaign so far on both sides is just about vibes and feelings and not about policy?
Well, you have to sort of take a step back and realize where we're operating in. We are operating in the ecosystem of the digital universe that we're in, and just the incentives, I think, for much of the press and journalists is to sort of evoke a response that will go viral. And I think that's just where we are right now, and I think ultimately what will happen, the impact of this election will impact families, businesses, sectors, Wall Street, whatever. And I think at the end, we got to get down to this discussion. We're just not there right now.
So you know what would go viral for me? What is antitrust policy? What kind of tariffs are you going to really deal with? And what kind of potential framework are you going to come up with for the federal deficit? Look, there are all these questions that we have that we don't really have answers to, but the hints of it don't point to one party being more business-friendly than the other. Do you get a sense of which that business-friendly governmental party is anymore?
Well, if you take a look at what's going on globally, I mean, we have seen, as this year has been dubbed the year of the election, and there have been, I think, almost half the globe's population has gone to the ballot box, so which does speak well for democracy. I know there's a lot of calls for the demise of democracy, et cetera. But I will say that the common theme, in my view, is this sort of populism that has taken on a very nationalistic fervor. And our country is not immune from that either. I look at the left, and they have always been about populism versus business and Main Street. But even my party now, we have seen an increase in the voice, which advocates more of a populist, more robust government involvement in the economy. And I think what that means is we're going to be set up in the Republican Party for a real debate now going forward. We haven't had one of those in a while.
What do you think that debate should be?
Well, I think what it will be is you've got, voices who have come to the fore. I mean, there's been no secret that our vice presidential nominee, J.D. Vance, has taken a very different view than those of us who are more traditionally, let's say, classical, economically liberal in terms of lower taxes, less regulation, a limited government posture and fiscal discipline. Those are the kinds of things that I think someone like me would stand for. And then as far as foreign policy, I don't think that necessarily the voices that are talking about, isolationism or nationalism are necessarily those who feel like America needs to lead in the world. I mean, I do think that if it's not for our country, I worry about where the world goes and how that impacts us here at home.
How do you bring that idea back alive in the Republican Party? Because it feels like it's dead and buried.
Well, I do think that we're going to see things play out. I do think we will win the election, and hopefully we'll have a unified Republican government in Washington that can affect some change. And I still think there is the overwhelming majority of members of my party who will serve in policy-making positions who do share some of the, what I call, more orthodox Republican positions of lower taxes, creating an environment for investment, for risk-taking, to create more jobs, more productivity, and more wealth.
So is that what you tell your clients who ask, in particular about J.D. Vance and some of his comments, in particular about Lina Khan and the FTC currently and how much it has engaged in policy that he thinks is good in terms of breaking up big business? How do you advise them to understand that if you think that your party, the Republican Party, will ultimately be pro-business?
So it's so interesting because at Mullis, many of our clients are watching what's going on in Washington, wondering what's going to happen on the regulatory environment. There's no question. And if you look at this election, it is an election where we're going to have some change from a statutory standpoint and regulatory standpoint because there is no incumbent running. So even if the other side, if Kamala Harris were to win, she's not Joe Biden. So let's see what that means. But what I think is going to happen as far as sort of the regulatory outlook is that you'll see change. You'll see a rotation in asset allocations. I mean, we're already seeing so much of that going on in the markets from the S&P into the Russell. But I do think all of this is going to bring about some more activity in the markets. And I know from Mullis & Company's standpoint, we're very optimistic going forward.
Do your clients and your colleagues and yourself donate to both parties to sort of cover your bets, or is it sort of, picking a side?
Listen, look, it sort of goes back as long as I have been sort of attentive to this stuff. Wall Street, business in general, it's not a monolith. It never has been. And it's about trying to affect the policies that create an environment for growth. And if there is an administration like there is now that is very hostile to growth, I see. I mean, if you look at Lena Khan, she has just tried to pursue this very unorthodox sort of thesis in antitrust, and the courts have pretty much pushed her back on that. And I think that there are many in the business community who don't share that view. It's incumbent upon Kamala Harris to step up and say, how is it that she's going to deal differently if she wants the support of the business community?
We'd like to see that interview. I'll put it that way. It's working for her not having one at the moment and not answering questions. We'd like to see that interview, particularly here at Bloomberg. I want to squeeze this one in. 1 minute. What's the biggest difference between Trump 1.0 and Trump 2.0? How have things changed?
I'm not sure I'm qualified. I think there's only one person who could tell you that, and that's President Trump. But, you know, look, the unpredictability factor is something that's worked for him, so you don't really know. But I don't see any indication to demonstrate that the regulatory environment would be necessarily any different than it was under Trump 1, which was really a deregulatory environment trying to produce more investment and more growth in our economy. And I think, look, Donald Trump is a business person. I mean, he does understand that, you know, Washington can either be an adversary or can be there to provide and condition an environment for investment. And I know that is his goal, to want to win as America. And my bet would be on that.